So welcome, everybody. This is continuing our 4D class. We have to relabel it 2025, starting soon. Uh, We have here Darinka and Nat. So this is, how do you get what you want? And it's about AMBR. And I'm sure you're familiar with AMBR, the ancient hardened resin so common in the Baltic areas and in Black Sea. That's not what we're talking about. It's a different AMBR. It's managing your attention. I'm not sure how much most people think about this, but attention is a precious resource. And then your mindsets. And your mindsets, as according to this diagram, are your springboards for action, which leads you to take action, which is the behavior and the result. And what I think can work here is you get a positive result with this, and it can make a forward feedback loop and encourage you to continue the process. That's the basic idea of AMBR. Someone asked me where I got it. I don't know. I may have read it someplace and forgotten long ago. Where attention goes, power flows. It's a very limited resource. I think of it like food or money. Just like you have I think you should have an attention budget, just like you have a financial budget. Manage where your attention goes. And just as one must not spend frivolously, one ignore less important things. This is an important point. So people ask me, how do you focus 100% on something? And I think that it's a matter of choosing to ignore less important things. So when I was running the astrophysics division and trying to get the Great Observatory started, there were things like the space station. All the other divisions were busy obsessing over the space station, believing it's going to be a source of free money. It might or might not have been, but it just wasn't important to me, so I didn't pay attention to it. The whole rest of the organization was meeting constantly about it. And there's some risk in that, but it was a risk I was willing to take. And once you do this, you can focus like a laser onto your outcomes and enforcement realities. Some significant emotional experiences. We remember these, so I'm trying to give you some things that might shock you a little bit to help jog some memory cells. For example, most people my age remember where we were when we heard Kennedy was shot. And it actually works in bathrooms. Someone discovered this a long time ago that men, when they urinate, like to hit targets. And you put a bumblebee image in here, it keeps the bathroom floor cleaner. And I saw this in China, and I thought the Chinese have done one better, that men have this urge to hit the soccer ball. Mindsets are a springboard for action, and with the 4D system, we can actually manage mindsets by dissecting it, analyzing it into the two components, emotions and how emotions are made. Core systems in the whole brain give meaning to body sensations based on past experiences and thoughts. And these come from our little baby blanket cerebral cortex laying at the top of our brain. Comments or questions? Okay so far? Okay. Behavior. We have in the workshop a number of behavioral change strategies. Reflection, you write in your workbooks at times when we tell you to. You share the material in huddles, everybody standing. We take this context shifting worksheet and work through a real problem that your group is having. And the online tools provide easy habituation. By the way, my friend Hector in Santo Domingo, currently he's in Monterrey, Mexico, is trying again to build one of these things. He's got a new software person. The last guy bailed on us after he worked on it for a while. So people ask me, and particularly in China, what's the magic pill for leadership? And the answer is there is none. You've got to practice, like sports, music, and physics. Uh, in physics, you got to work the problems. If you don't work the problems, you don't learn it. And Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell, he says mastery of anything requires 10,000 hours of practice. I don't know that's the right number, but I think it's the right point. This stuff takes time to practice and learn. That's all there is to it. Like I'm gonna have, oh yeah, so a video is coming up. Laura Boyd, so I like to put in here the highlights of it beforehand, so you hear it twice. It's the essential repetition again. The primary driver of change in your brain is your behavior. There is no drug. Nothing is more effective than practice. You got to do the work, and the more difficult, the greater the learning. We used to have a saying when I was undergraduate: you never learn anything from a problem you can do. You learn things when you have to struggle. Looks like I'm gonna have to link this video, so let me do that.
So by studying the brain after stroke, we've learned a lot, and I think these lessons are very valuable in other areas. So the first lesson is that the primary driver of change in your brain is your behavior. So there's no neuroplasticity drug you can take. Nothing is more effective than practice at helping you learn, and the bottom line is you have to do the work. And in fact, my research has shown that increased difficulty, increased struggle, if you will, during practice actually leads to both more learning and greater structural change in the brain.
And the results, so I think a very unique thing about this particular work is that we actually measure the results. We measure the behavioral change, and people reported that the numbers match what's happening on the ground in reality. So we're going to look at the 8 context shifting behaviors. Appreciation first. Performing organizations enjoy what they're doing. Appreciation makes workplaces enjoyable. This was a big mindset shift for me. I actually had people that I worked for who said, your people look too happy. You got to do something about it. They look too relaxed. You got to do something about it. No, I think that happy people work more effectively. And the second behavior in this is address shared interests. And the question here is very simple. What do they want that I can want for them also? This is the core of all negotiation. In fact, I think it's the core of all relationships even. Appreciation is a wonderful thing. It makes what is excellent in others belong to us as well. Isn't that interesting? That's a transfer there. So how did I get interested in this? Well, I attended a seminar by the authors of this book, King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, and I assigned those the 4 colors here that sort of match up. And what they said is that these are Jungian archetypes, and you live in one of these archetypes. I decided that I was in the king archetype at this point. I had enormous power. I had $1 billion more or less to spend sort of as I chose, although there were certain rules and things. And what they said in this workshop is the only legitimate function of the king was blessing the subjects. So I reflected on this. I had been pretty critical of things. It's my natural blue nature. So I tried an experiment. When I went to work the next Monday morning, I imagined I was a king with the scepter, and I appreciated the subjects. When someone came in and showed me something, rather than point out the little nit that was wrong with it, I said, wow, that's really good work, and here's why. And the place was energized incredibly. Glad group filled the place, and electricity was in the air. And I think even more importantly, we had in this environment, the willingness to discuss unfortunate realities. People would bring me problems and difficulties and share them fully because they know they're not going to get beat up for doing it. This is one of the things that was so troublesome at Marshall with the projects they managed. It was a killed the messenger approach. So before you criticize others, walk a mile in their shoes, because you'll be a mile away, too far away for them to hit you, and you'll have their shoes.
I do love that joke.
This is the checklist I use for including any behavior. Does it address a dimension? Yes, the cultivating dimension. Address a natural human need? Yes. A feeling valued is a very deep human need. Can you see it? Yep, it's observable. Can you measure it? Yes, we measure with the HAP standard, habitually, authentically, proportionally, promptly, and specifically. Can you learn it with AMBR? Yes, we have learned it with these experiential exercises, and even emails work. Is it personally rewarded? Yeah, it feels great both ways, giving and receiving. Good business results. I'll show you it turned around a whole section of Ernst & Young. And repetition efficient with the online tools, which I hope to get back soon. Comments or thoughts? Are we okay? This is the checklist. So mastering habitual appreciation creates a context of mutual respect and open communications. And again, it's a feedback loop. The more you express it, the more other people feel able to express it. It's a self-reinforcing feedback loop. And it works because we're tribal. And the images are just people addressing unfortunate realities thoughtfully and listening carefully. So our journey through this is going to be attention, motivation to pay attention to things, practice shifting our mindset, practicing the behavior experientially. Gets good results. I'll show you health results, and finally business results. And as always, a reminder to choose to focus on changing yourself. I am human, need to be loved just like everybody else. If you're not sure about this, recall a relationship where you do not feel valued. I think you left physically and or emotionally. Those of us that have been divorced can relate to this, I think. Is it every human? So people ask me, are you sure Chinese need it? Are you sure that, Germans need it? Yeah, animals need it too. Dogs need it. Chimps need it. Cats need it. And Warren Buffett, a very wealthy investor, I'm sure you know the name. He wrote this book called The Snowball. And here's a quote from it. When you get to my age, you'll measure your success in life by how many people you want to love you actually do love you. I know people have a lot of money, but the truth is nobody loves them. And that's the ultimate test of how you lived your life, how many people love you. The trouble with love is you can't buy it. The more you give love, the more you get. And of course, from the song, and in the end, the love you take is equal to the love you make. So look at data, hard data from Gallup. 70% report receiving no praise or recognition in the workplace. That's how badly we do this. 64% of those who leave their jobs said they didn't feel appreciated. My son's talked about quitting his job, which is really perfect for him because he doesn't feel appreciated. This is a worldwide Gallup survey. Look at this. 70% hate going to work, or mentally checked out, roaming the halls, spreading discontent. This is from a consultants I worked with many, many years ago. What they said is that in a typical business, about 20% of the workers are giving all they can. There's nothing you can do to get more out of them. Another 20% don't want to give more. There's nothing you can do to get more out of them. But the 60% in the middle said they would give more to their work if it were more in it for them. Was it that they want? They want to feel appreciated. So people ask me, will this take more time? I'm already time stressed. We tend to live in time stress. What I say is that if you make it a habit, you won't experience it as taking more time. It's really interesting. Surveys overwhelmingly show that supervisors believe money motivates. But our deepest needs are emotional, to feel appreciated and feel included. There's lots of difficulties with extrinsic rewards like money. The first is we tend to judge it relative to others. Isn't that how we do it? It has no absolute value. And here's the odd thing about it. It makes us hungry for even more. The more money we collect, the more we want. I think it's a dopamine addiction. And from the Bible, the love of money is the root of all evil. It's frequently misquoted as saying money is the root of all evil. No, the love of money is the root of all evil. And get this, it can be financial rewards can reduce cognitive abilities. So here's Dan Pink going to talk about this. Once a job requires thinking, which I think modern jobs all require thinking, extrinsic motivations like money are often harmful. And in contrast, intrinsic motivators work, meeting people's needs. I'm gonna have to fix this video, folks. Sorry about this.
No problem. Gives me a chance to catch up my notes.
Okay.
Princeton University in the US. This shows the power of incentives. Here's what he did. He gathered his participants and he said, I'm going to time you how quickly you can solve this problem. To one group, he said, I'm going to time you to establish norms, averages for how long it typically takes someone to solve this sort of problem. To the second group, he offered rewards. He said, if you're in the top 25% of the fastest times, you get $5. If you're the fastest of everyone we're testing here today, you get $20. Okay, now this is several years ago, adjusted for inflation. It's a decent sum of money for a few minutes of work. Okay, it's a nice motivator. Question, how much faster did this group solve the problem? Answer, it took them on average 3.5 minutes longer. 3.5 minutes longer. Now this makes no sense, right? I mean, I'm an American. I believe in free markets. That's not how it's supposed to work, right? If you want people to perform better, you reward them, right? Bonuses, commissions, their own reality show, incentivize them. That's how business works. But that's not happening here. You've got an incentive designed to sharpen thinking and accelerate creativity, and it does just the opposite. It dulls thinking and blocks creativity. And what's interesting about this experiment is that it's not an aberration. This has been replicated over and over and over again for nearly 40 years. These contingent motivators. If you do this, then you get that. Work in some circumstances, but for a lot of tasks, they actually either don't work or often they do harm. This is one of the most robust findings in social science and also one of the most ignored. I spent the last couple of years looking at the science of human motivation, particularly the dynamics of extrinsic motivators and intrinsic motivators. And I'm telling you, it's not even close. If you look at the science, there is a mismatch between what science knows and what business does. And what's alarming here is that our business operating system, think of the set of assumptions and protocols beneath our businesses, how we motivate people, how we apply our human resources. It's built entirely around these extrinsic motivators, around carrots and sticks. That's actually fine for many kinds of 20th century tasks. But for 21st century tasks, that mechanistic reward and punishment approach doesn't work, often doesn't work, and often does harm.
So what do you think's happening here? What's going on? I find this really interesting, and my sort of thinking about this is that to think about a serious problem, like if I've got to putting my mind around something. What I need is focus, mental effort. So part of my problem is if I'm deeply involved in something, I need an alarm to tell me this class is coming. If I'm really totally absorbed in something, I lose track of time. Now, if I've got my brain wrapped around how do I get this reward for doing something, that interrupts cognition. I think that's the mechanism, that when you take your mind off of the task to think about how you're going to get the reward, it reduces your ability to think about the task. That's the best thing I can understand about this. And he's absolutely right. The intrinsic things that you need are appreciation and inclusion, and the financial rewards. I don't know about you guys, but I never worked for money. I worked for the satisfaction of making a contribution, and believed the money would come, and it did. I think I got this lesson early on. I probably mentioned this several times, but when I was in undergraduate school, I paid my own way because I was a co-op student. I went to school 6 months a year and worked 6 months a year. And I worked at a naval laboratory as a civil servant, and I lived at home so I could save enough money. But with my tuition covered half by a scholarship, my father just paid half the tuition, which wasn't a lot of money in those days. I made enough money in 6 months and saved it to the next 6 months I could live. The last year and the first year are 3 months working and 9 months in school. So after 3 months, I ran out of money, and home wasn't going to give me anything. So I got the idea of starting a clothing business from walking around the climate district in Philadelphia and finding that I could buy wholesale sweatshirts and jackets for like $1 when the people selling them with fraternity stuff were selling them for $10 in those days. That's a lot of money back then. And someone could silk screen them for 50 cents. For $1.50 cost, I could sell them for say $3 and make 100% profit, and give away some free clothing to people who are doing the legwork. So in about 2 months, I made enough money to pay the rest of my school. So money has just never been a big deal. And I think that's probably a big asset in helping me do things, that I'm able to focus on what's got to be done, not worrying about money. This makes sense?
Yeah, I think exactly. I mean, you said it very well, that for you, work that it's, I mean, there needs to be a certain level of money that person is
Exactly.
sure, right? Like you have to have shelter and food
Exactly.
and basic needs. And
Yeah.
then beyond that, how much more it is, well, then that's different.
You know, another thing, my my business made a lot of money at times, and we never spent it. When I married Junko, I was basically unemployed, living on my federal retirement, and we've done that to this day. We live on that money. I mean, this house required money that was from savings, so we saved all the excess money, and the reason was, A, we didn't need it. Okay, I don't need more stuff, and B, stuff requires maintenance, but B, if you raise your standard of living because you have a big income and it's volatile, when you have your own company, the money might not be there next year. You never know. You have to lower your standard of living, and I'd much rather not have to do that. So I think he's spot on with this. So here's another question. As people move up in the organization, do you think their deep emotional needs are more or less likely to be met? What do you think? I think less and less.
Probably less. Mhm.
Less.
You know, the more as you move up, what do people name appreciating bosses? You know these names for it. There's lots of names in the vernacular for it. So people are reluctant to do this. Departing CEOs of Fortune 500 companies cite lack of appreciation as a primary reason for leaving their jobs. These are the people with the houses in the Hamptons. They got probably a company helicopter and jet at their disposal. Yet they need this. This is deep need. I think the appreciation that they're talking about here is probably appreciation from their board more than the employees. That's where they need it from. So I tell people, appreciate your bosses the way we teach you here. And the reason is that if it's authentic, it'll be seen as authentic. And you'll never be named with these images above. This is funny. I've got a friend in Calgary, the 4D provider. Junko and I went up there to visit him. He just bought this new Camry hybrid. And every time he turned the car off, his face would go down into the dashboard and stare at it, because the car gives him appreciation if he drives it energy-wise. So we even want it for inanimate objects. We still want appreciation, even for something that's not real. That's how deep the need is. You wrote last obstacles to appreciating. You wrote last year's date on this report. Haha, Swift. I enjoy pointing out your mistakes because it makes me feel better about myself. I wrote this last year. This will go faster if you say you didn't. Bart Simpson's dinner blessing. Dear God, we paid for all this stuff ourselves, so thanks for nothing. Lao Tzu, be content with what you have. Rejoice in the way things are. When you realize there's nothing lacking, the whole world belongs to you. And Darinka, I want to go back to your point. There's a threshold, okay, that where I think in the US, the number is typically around $60,000, $70,000 a year, where you can afford, schools for children and a decent place to live and whatnot. Cicero, I love that this stuff is ancient. A thankful heart is not only the greatest virtue, but the parent of all other virtues. Isn't that potent? He is a man of sense who does not grieve for what he does not have, but rejoices in what he has. We're all heirs and heiresses to a society of freedom and play that most of us did absolutely nothing to earn. So now you've got to earn by getting on your feet. I felt good.
That did feel good.
Good, yeah. So I worked for a 1D Blue boss. He was the head of NASA. And he had no empathy. I think if you look at the two core things, it's empathy and accountability. And he was unwilling to be accountable. And so all of his time was spent on trying to rig things so when failures happened, they wouldn't be blamed on him. And he did this by having these big review boards, which was a waste of money to look at everything. So I talked to people at the company he came from, TRW, and asked them, what can I do to help him be successful? Because his success will be NASA's success. And they said, he's going to come up with some crazy idea and someone's going to have to keep him from running into a brick wall about twice a week. So I'm thinking about how I'm gonna do this with this guy. We had a friendship, but it was, I think, tenuous. So I decided to write my life vision. In those days, we had these little leather planners we carried with us. This is before there was things electronic. And I had a 40-minute ride on the subway. So in the morning, I would focus on my life vision and purpose. And the first vision that I wrote, I said I want to be wealthy. And then I realized that money doesn't satiate. And this is the scarcity mindset. If you live in scarcity, there's never enough. And so I said, I want to live in the experience of wealth, irrespective of how much money I actually have. This is the abundance mindset. And because of this, I'm able to spend money taking my relatives around the world traveling. I pay for school when it's appropriate. My time is free to people because the opportunity cost is nothing. That's how I look at this. The question is, if I buy a ticket for a nephew to fly to meet us in, say, I don't know, Berlin, what is it that I have? What is it that I want that I can't have because I've done that? And the answer is nothing. Therefore, the cost is nothing. You follow me? I'm a local Native American. I judge people not by how much they have, but how much they give. Isn't that wild? So wealth consists in having wealth consists not in having many possessions, but few wants. I love this. I saw this on a greeting card in Boulder, the Boulder bookstore long ago. If you're not happy with what you have, how could you be happier with more? So giving a life of abundance and happiness of serotonin. So when I first moved here, I became friends with an English professor. I was brand new to Boulder, didn't know anybody here, and he and his wife would have me over to their house for holidays, and I appreciated that, so I had no other family. And he would open the refrigerator door and show me, I got one, he showed me a bottle of Cordon Rouge champagne. And he said, by the way, it's not for you. After you're gone, the wife and I are gonna take it up in the bedroom and drink, and you know what? Just wanted you to know. So it was the English professor's salary. They didn't have a lot of money. For example, his wife sewed his children's clothes to save money. So it was a big deal to save up for this. And so about 10 years after I'd seen Ron, I'm sitting at my desk, and whatever reason, Outlook pops up with his birthday. And I looked at it and told Junko, this is an abundance opportunity. So I went and I bought 2 cases of Cordon Rouge champagne and left them on his doorstep with no note. And nothing happened. I waited till next day. About middle of the next day, I get a phone call. And it's Ron. And I said, hey, Ron, how you doing? He said, it was you. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. How the boys, are they still in school? It was you. Are you still teaching at CU? It was you. No matter what I said, all he would say is, it was you. And I said, okay, I'm busted. How'd you figure it out? I said, well, I took and made a list of everybody that knew about my birthday, and that was not that long a list. Then I put a check mark by the people who'd be crazy, who might do this. And it was you. So I said, yep, it was me. So bottom line is I've gotten more enjoyment out of telling this story for the last 15 years than I ever did from the cost of that champagne. And the 4D stuff's all free. It's all about serotonin. Bob Dylan, what's money? A person with success, if they can get up in the morning and get to bed at night and in between do what they want to do. Doesn't that tell it all? So I was talking about this in a workshop in China, and somebody said, Charlie, that's a great story, but the truth of the matter is I'm living here in Shanghai. I've got an apartment back in Beijing with a wife and her mother and my children. And at the end of the month, I'm barely able to make ends meet between all these expenses. I could never do something like that. So I'm thinking about this and I'm reflecting on the fact that gestures are more impactful than gifts. So when I'm traveling in China, I've got this little briefcase kind of like this, and they insist on carrying it. Now, I can just carry it, but it's nice. They insist on opening doors for me. I get applause at the end. Usually at every break, I get stand-up applause in the workshops. And at the end of the workshop, I get handshakes and hugs. And people I don't even know whispering in my ear, I love you, Charlie. This is all. So gestures are more powerful than I think anything you could give people. And think about gestures, they control orchestras. You can do something like offer to do someone's work for them. I don't do this much anymore, but try and remember to do one of Junko's tasks. I used to set aside a budget and take people out for lunch or breakfast that they didn't expect it. And just people were blown away when I said, lunch is on me, let's go. And they'd ask me why sometimes. I'd say, because I'm living in abundance. Help somebody out with something. Make a new friend. I think jokes help to build this mindset. A ham sandwich walks into a bar and orders a beer. Bartender says, sorry, we don't serve food here. So look for opportunities to reflect on what you're grateful for in your work life. I won the lottery. That's what this is about. It wasn't the money lottery, it was a better one. NASA hired me. I've been to lots of expensive education somebody else paid for. I'm grateful for the 40 systems work in my workshops. Loving wife. This is New Year's back in the early days. We don't do this anymore, but that's what New Year's Japanese style looks like. And my 2 children. And I'm thankful that I can eat fresh vegetables as I want. Travel the world. Just be alive every day and healthy. So you can choose to focus your attention on what you have or what you don't have. Decide if the glass is half full or half empty. So this is an exercise I used to do when I was consulting for TRW. I'm coming to a room and everybody's in a down mood, usually because they lost a proposal. This was a proposal operations team, and they'd be really bad mood, sad. And I just stop right there and say, pick the first person and say, would you tell what you're grateful for about being able to work in this job at TRW? And they could do it. And next person. Everybody could do this, and it changed the mindset in the room. Everything was uplifted. We're back to doing work again. You guys have a homework assignment. I'll ask you next time we get together what you wrote. I'll ask you to share it with each other. I'll just be listening. What you're grateful for in your work, your family, and your life. 3 categories. Okay? Next time, report. So we'll have you speak this to each other next time we get together. And then I think it's useful to help your colleagues language this. You don't want to tell a long story. The kind of thing we want is your work, you have a great job, your coworkers, your family, your home life, your family members, relatives, if you like them, fond of them, life. To me, it's the ability to contribute, to travel. So simple things like that. And when you do this, we'll do it next time we get together. Notice any emotions that come up. As each person finishes, encourage with some appreciative applause. And I allow 15 minutes maximum for the 4 people to do this. We'll let you guys do as you want. So is it clear what you're going to do? You're going to write this down. Okay.
Sounds good.
So next thing we do in the workshop is we appreciate what people appreciate about themselves, their color. And the reason for this is that I may have told this, probably told this before. When I decided to get divorced, my ex said, why are you divorcing me? Because I love you. And I said, I'm divorcing you because I don't feel loved. And I went to a psychologist and she said, how do I understand this? She says, what do you appreciate about yourself? I said, I talked about, at the time I didn't have the colors, but I talked about my blueness, my creativity, out of the box thinking, like to do different things like race sailboats. That's not something that appeals to everybody, and spend money and effort on that. I'm very intellectual, I change things a lot. And says, what does she care about? Does she like those things? No, she hates that part. What she likes is I'm a good provider. I take care of the children and her. So she appreciates my orange, which I don't. So for the greens, they're caring, their deep values. Yellows, it's that they're friendly and likable. The blues, curiosity and intellectualism. And the orange is disciplined and organized. So what the exercises I appreciate you for. So I'm gonna suggest we do that now, and I'll start. Nat, I appreciate you very much remembering my class from 30 years ago and looking me up and living the life you live, and with the sort of love that I see you have for your wife and your children, a great life, and I appreciate you.
Thank you.
And Darinka, I really appreciate your comments. Whenever I get your comments, I've learned to listen deeply. You're a deep thinker, have a really good perspective. You bring in some flavor of orange into all this. And it's just nice to have time with you. I appreciate the time you spend with me and the contributions you make to my life and learning.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlie.
Now you're open to appreciate each other as you would like. Up to you.
I can go first. Dr. Pellerin, obviously, I appreciated the learning that I got way back when, and actually have a fun, quick story to share. I'm actually working with two of my former classmates from that class.
Oh, great.
And
Who are they?
Garrett Snip and
Yeah, I know Garrett.
Jason, Jason Petrie.
Name's familiar, but I can't place the face.
Yeah, they were both in my class, and we were talking at a Christmas party, and they both mentioned that the binder that we all got was one of the few things, if anything, that they had from their undergrad, and I'm the same. I have my binder as well.
Nice.
So yeah, that set me on a growth life path, and obviously it was impactful enough, which is why I sought you back out after all these years. Darinka, I think Charlie said it very well. You have a wonderful and different perspective that always adds to the conversation on these weekly calls, but also causes me to think more deeply myself. And I really, really appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I'll start with Charlie. So thank you very, very much for including me in these workshops. Your book is really something that changed a lot of perspectives and taught me a lot. So thank you for making the effort in writing the book. I don't even know what is all that it takes to put the book together and then to keep it all. So thank you very much for that.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate this time, and every week I learn something new. So even when you say, well, we are repeating some material, I always actually find so much new, not just little things, but so much new in that. And when you said that you really give this time to us for free. I understand that it is for free. It's a rare free thing that we get in life. So I very, very much appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So not for you. It is always really interesting to listen to your perspective. So you bring that part financial, part entrepreneurial view of things. I also very, very much appreciate your honesty, because in a number of these sessions, you have expressed things that you wanted to learn, things that you debated about, some issues that you were trying to look at. So I very much appreciate being in touch with someone who is so honest and open about their thinking and their mindset. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Drinka. That was very special.
Thanks.
See, you get the power of this, right? Just doing it. Yeah. So I didn't mention this, but if they're not present, you could report that in the huddles and say, I'll tell them when I see them.
Yep.
So this is the exercise just broken down, chunk it down, as they say. It's interesting. Dean Ornish, you probably know this name. He's very well known for his work. No other factor in medicine, not diet, not exercise, not genetics, not drugs, not surgery, has a greater positive impact on quality of life and reduction of disease than appreciation. It's good for your health. And the flip side is anger. The blamer state will kill you. I don't know how Trump stays alive another day, frankly. That's a mystery. But maybe there's something good in McDonald's burgers after all. I don't know, but anger is deadly. So, little story about business results. My first client was Ernst & Young. I'll just tell you, I don't usually talk about this, but I've got a little time here. What happened is I went to the dean and said, I'd like to stay here permanently. I like doing this work a lot. And here's what I'm willing to do. I'm willing to take the job for much less pay than you ordinarily would pay a professor. I'm willing to take it for $60,000 a year. And and the deal is that I'll just teach my classes. I won't get involved with the politics of the business school or the faculty meetings. And I won't publish research. I'll do it, but I'm not going to be judged for publications. And but that's what I'm happy to do if that's something you want. So unfortunately, the dean isn't in charge of anything. The university is a pure blue culture. It's upside down, and the faculty have to say so. And the faculty didn't like me a lot because I'm outspoken. And the dean said one time, he said, you say a lot of things here that annoy people. And he said the problem with them is that they're the truth. And so if they were just lies, it wouldn't bother you, but you're speaking the truth and they don't want to hear it. So what he decided to do was to call a meeting of his advisory committee to review my classes and see if they could persuade the faculty. So the advisory committee was chaired by the CEO of Pepsi, and it's very senior executives from businesses, I think primarily chosen because they give money to the university. I've never discussed, but I think that's the reality. And so my class was scheduled to be briefed in the morning, but the agenda ran over. So we went to lunch, and we went to the local cafeteria, and I'm walking with him, and he'd asked my students to come, so I had like 6 or 7 students walking along with me. And one of the other students in the class saw us and said, what are you doing? He says, well, we're here for the Dean's Advisory Committee. And she said, well, can I join you? So, okay, sure. So I think it established the fact that I had not briefed the students or anything. We got there, he said, Charlie, I know you've got a briefing prepared, but I would just want to hear from the students instead. I said, that's fine with me. So I got really lucky. A graduating MBA student, management student, loved my work, and she started off, and things tend to continue the way they start. So she started very eloquently talking about my class. And I'm sitting there and everyone's talking about how it changed their lives totally. I've got tears running down my face listening to this. I was never heard anything like this. And Weatherup turns to the students and said, I just want to be clear. Are you saying that no student should ever graduate this business school without taking Dr. Pellerin's class? And they all go, yes. I'm looking around the room. The faculty are sending bullets with me now already. Then he asked the question that absolutely ended my academic career. He said, are you also saying that no faculty member should be permitted to teach in the school without taking Dr. Pellerin's class? They said yes. So at that point, my academic career ended. And I knew it. And I got these dirty looks, and they should have known that I was smart enough that I'd never put anybody up to that. That would be a stupid thing to do. But they weren't smart enough to know that. And during the break, 3 senior executives came up to me and said, we want this in our company. And one was a pretty blonde lady who was the area managing partner at Ernst & Young. And I immediately liked her. So I said, sure, I'll do a workshop for your thing. So what I want you to do is teach it like your class and come into Denver and do it for like 2 hours at a time, once a week or something. So I had a friend at the time who I kind of used as a consultant who worked in that kind of business. He said, no, it's a terrible mistake because what the problem is, you're trying to get, these are all partners going to be in this class. And partners live on billable hours. And so you're not going to have any consistency in the attendance. They're going to come if they feel like it. So you're going to find if you do it that way, that you do it once a week, then you're going to get different population every time. You got to do it all at once. I went back to her and said, no, we got to do it in a straight 2.5 days. She said, okay, she agreed. So I said, so what's going on here? She says, well, the business is broken completely. The first problem is that we're used to having the associates work endless hours, kind of like law firms do, hoping to be a partner. And now with the industry consolidating and drying up because of computers and PCs, there's no more partner opportunities and there's no motivation. Everybody's depressed. I can't motivate anybody to do anything. So the first thing I thought about is, what color is an accounting firm's culture?
Typically orange, I would guess.
Orange. On a scale of 1 to 10, how orange is it?
25.
11. Looks like this, right? So what do they need? Appreciation.
Yeah, the opposite.
Yep.
So I knew this, and I knew that I couldn't tell them that. So I did a Post-it note thing with them. The question was, what do we most need in the culture of Ernst & Young? And I tallied it up, and it came out appreciation. Well, the 5 partners who were in that meeting in their Brooks Brothers suits and their Italian shoes said, you made it up. It's not possible. And so what do accountants do when they don't believe the result? They call for an audit. So I said, here's 500 Post-its. I'm going to take everybody over to across the street for coffee, and you can count them up yourself. So they get on their hands and knees and start tallying all the Post-it notes. So we came back a half hour later, and they're all kind of grumpy looking. I said, what's the matter? They said, you're right. They want appreciation. So I knew it, right? So I went with the head of HR and said, now we need to inject appreciation into this organization. You're not going. This is not going to work to get people in Birkenstocks and flowing clothes to come in and tell them they got to do this. We need something that matches the culture. So she and I came up with the idea of an appreciation form, and it was a carbon paper, and we distributed these to everybody. And you wrote for who you're appreciating, for what, and who you are. And we took one copy of you gave one copy to the person that said, you can shake their hand if that works for you. You can stick it on their monitor if that works for you. You can do anything you want, just do it. Second copy went in the person's personnel file. So HR is tracking this. And the third copy, you kept yourself. So a month into it, I get a call from the HR lady. She says, you won't believe what's happened here. The place is totally transformed. It's alive, people are working hard. I said, it's because we met the core need of feeling appreciated, and we met it in a way that they could accommodate. So I said to my client, I said, how about tying 5% of the annual bonus? I did not watch that video yet, to a participation in the appreciation program with equal credit for being appreciated and giving appreciation. They said, sure, I'll do that. Well, profits roll through the roof. She was now promoted back to headquarters of the company, and she became the chair of the Kansas City Federal Reserve. That's a big deal for anybody. So appreciation is not about health and aliveness, dramatically enhances business results. So when I published my book, I gave her credit for being my first client, and I looked her up, and she has since retired and moved back to Boulder. And we met for lunch. She said that the work you did with me changed my life. Everything changed after that. So it's about results. That's going to wrap up today, 1 minute late. I'm sorry, but story couldn't be interrupted.
No, that's okay.
I'll see you next week. What's your homework assignment?
Workbook page 8.
I'm gonna turn off recording.